cognitions. I think we'll quickly go through it. You can open the 7th slide. Seventh. So the Sutta perspective, we are all aware, basically mentions that when the senses interact with the corresponding objects, then consciousness arises, which means visual object, it gives rise to seeing, auditory object, which gives rise to hearing, and so on. And depending on our perception, we respond to that. So the basic cognition process is in the 10th section mentioned is basically the arising of various consciousnesses based on the sense organs. So, and these are all conditioned phenomena which arise based on certain conditions, and we call each of these consciousnesses the vijnana or the chakkus. Some specific chakku vijnana, sota vijnana, and so on. So this is how we label them. So what do we understand therefore is that there is no person who is actually doing it. This is just a chitta which is arising and passing away. And that's how seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, everything happens. Now, in the Abhidhamma, the question is asked about what happens when we are asleep and deep sleep and there is no sense-door interaction. When there is no sense-door interaction, if you just focus on the basic eye consciousness, and they are not going to arise because we are sleeping. Eye is not seeing anything, we are not hearing anything.
But in dreams we are seeing them.
Yeah, but we are talking of deep sleep. So in deep sleep, we are not having any consciousness arising. So question naturally arises, the person is alive. So something must be happening. So that's the answer to that question is given in slide number 11. That there are basically two kinds of chittas which operate. One is the process chitta which operates in wakeful state, and another is the process-free consciousness which operates both in the wakeful state and also in the deep sleep. And this process-free chitta has three functions as we had seen. First is to maintain the life continuum, and in that function it is known as bhavanga chitta. Then second important function is to operate it as the last consciousness of one life. So that will be called Jyoti Chitta. That is the last consciousness which occurs in any individual. And then it creates a next rebirth linking consciousness, the Patisandhi Chitta, which is going to be the first consciousness to occur at the moment of rebirth of it. So the chittas which arise and follow of course succeed in the same way. So therefore the last chitta of the previous life is succeeded by the first chitta of the next life. So that sequence is maintained. But the last chitta of the previous life is being a bhavanga chitta, doesn't have potency to create new chitta. The karmic effect is of the previous chitta. So in slide 12, we have mentioned that the chitta...
The last one will not create another chitta, but the first chitta of the next birth is the actually...
First chitta of the next birth is affected by the penultimate chitta of the last birth, the one which arises just before the death. So the chitta that it is written in 12th Mahadekin, the chitta that occurs just before the Chuti chitta, it arises from karmic effect. And that will going to determine the nature of the rebirth consciousness.
So Chuti chitta is the one before the death.
Immediately. That is the one which causes death, you can say.
So that is also in the form of chitta.
Chitta arising, and then there is a next chitta which arises from there. So this is the last chitta of the previous life, and then next chitta. And that last chitta of the previous life is actually the bhavanga chitta, which is continuing with the stream. But the one which is just before that is karmic chitta. जो कहते हैं कि मृत्यु के समय पे क्या जागेगा? So what karma will arise at the time of death? That is what is meant by karmic process. and that is going to determine the chitta, which will be the patisandhi chitta, the nature of chitta which will arise after and reborn.
लेकिन जिसका जो भी रीबॉर्न होगा उसका जो लास्ट चित्ता होगा उसको पता चलेगा कि वो किस जन्म में जा रहा है, वो नहीं पता चलेगा.
Sometimes they say that at the time of death some signals operate, some nimitta arises, but the person cannot figure out.
कहाँ जाना है.
In certain cases, a person can visualize that this is appearing before my consciousness, which it looks like a dream, that something is appearing. But usually, which is sometimes it can be indication of the next life. Sometimes it can be, but there is no way that a person will remember that. Of course, जो म्यूटेशन केसेस होते हैं ना जिनको पुराने जन्म का याद रहता है तो बात अलग हुई, बट नॉर्मली इट डजंट हैपन. कुछ लोगों को बिकॉज ऑफ द स्ट्रॉन्ग कार्मिक इन्फ्लुएंस दैट इम्पैक्ट गेट्स कैरिड अवे टू द नेक्स्ट लाइफ. जैसे कई बार किसी को एक्सीडेंटल डेथ हो जाती है तो कई बार उनको याद रह जाता है. तो
बात में जो प्रोसेस चित्ता है, जो अभिधि चित्ता है, उसमें डिफरेंस हम दोनों साथ साथ चल रहे हैं.
जब प्रोसेस वहाँ वो नेक्स्ट में आई थिंक स्लाइड में डिस्क्राइब किया हुआ है.
So Sinisha is a question that isn't the two Chuti and the Parisandhi the same?
No. It is actually the chitta, sequence of chitta is arising every moment. So that as long as there is a residual sankhara, chitta will arise. Sankhara, pachya, vinyana, we understand in Paticca Samutpada. So sankharas are there, so then vinyana will arise, conditioned by that. So that keeps on happening every moment. Moment meaning mind moment, which is extremely short time. So the Shruti Chitta will be the last Chitta of the previous life, and that will be succeeded by Patisandhi Chitta. But the Patisandhi Chitta will not have the same characteristic as Shruti Chitta. It will have characteristics conditioned by the previous Chitta, which is the karmic influence which arises. So it will be conditioned by that. They are no two Chitta are the same. They are like mother and daughter जैसे example दिया था ना. Mother cell जैसे पैदा होती है, biology में कहा जाता है ना, cell arises and dies. So mother is there and the daughter cell कहा जाता है. Same way, but they are not too different also. They carry their imprint. Just as the child carries the imprint of the parent, similarly the chittas carry the imprint of the previous chitta. So that's how the communication of various habit patterns and latent tendencies keeps on happening.
What's the difference in these two? Otherwise, also it's happening the same way.
So that's why it is said that is just a change of body.
बॉडी में जिस समय चेंजेस आते हैं ना, जब चित्ता का चेंजेस होगा, छोटी चित्ता से पटी चित्ता में जब जाएगा, फिजिकल चेंजेस भी तो कुछ
बॉडी बदल जाएगी ना. इस टाइम his body is finished. He will now enter into some womb. नए योनि में जाएगा ना, मनुष्य योनि की, देव योनि की, पशु योनि की, जो भी जाएगा. सो तो उसी के हिसाब से होता है. संखार पच्य विज्ञान,
उसको ये नहीं पता चलेगा मैं किस चीज में,
पता चलने का कुछ खास नहीं.
आपने जो बात कही कि अंतिम जो चित्त है
जी,
और ये जो कह रहे च्युति जो चित्त है, क्या इनमें डिफरेंस है? दोनों एक
यही तो है. चित्त का मतलब वही है ना, लास्ट चित्त, द वन व्हिच इज अकरिंग एट द डेथ.
बड़ा कह रहे हैं उससे पिछले वाले की कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स उसमें.
हाँ, क्योंकि वो चित्त जो है ना, चित्त वो तो mind gets calmed down at the time, just at the moment of death. Mind gets calmed down, and then the previous sankhara which has arisen, which communicates the signal.
जो च्युति होगा उसके अंदर तो सारी वो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑलरेडी होंगे.
वो जो है ना, that is a bhavanga chitta है ना वो. That is bhavanga chitta means it has a latent tendencies, and the karmic influence, जो strong influence आ रहा है, वो उठा है उस समय मृत्यु के समय पे, वो ज्यादा पावरफुल है in creating the next chitta. That is have its strong impact. So that also contains all these things.
तो वो चित्त जो है
जी,
वो नहीं है जिसमें सारे ये सारा इम्पैक्ट है.
इसमें पिछले जन्म का इम्पैक्ट चला रहा है. जैसे इस समय हम जीवित हैं ना, तो जब हम डीप स्लीप में होते हैं तो भवंग चित्त चलता है, और भवंग चित्त जो है वो शरीर के साथ रिलेट नहीं करता. इट डज नॉट सेंस एनीथिंग, इट इज ओनली कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ द लाइफ. एंड व्हाट इज द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक ऑफ भवंग चित्त? इट इज कंडीशन बाय द पास्ट लाइफ्स श्रुति चित्त. तो पटिसंधि चित्त का जो नेक्स्ट चित्त होगा ना, अभी जैसे पटिसंधि चित्त
लास्ट हमारे सीड सॉन्ग का
हाँ, उसको तो उसके अंदर लेटेंट रूप में पड़े हुए हैं. And those are going to determine how I am going to respond and other things. But the strong impact of where am I going to be born will be governed by the karmic force which arises just before. That is what will carry me to the next life. अगर कोई कर्मा नहीं है, मान लीजिए समाप्त हो गया, अरहंत बन गया, फिर कर्मा नहीं है, the Chutti Chitta will not be succeeded by any Chitta. Finished. Because there is no force available to give the momentum to the next birth.
जो मतलब जो आप बोल रहे हैं नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में,
नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में देख लेते हैं. So depending on what Patisandhi Chitta arises, there can be different births. तो जो हमने वो चित्तों के पढ़े थे ना, 89 kinds of चित्ता and all that. So उनमें से which chitta will arise will determine what birth will be there. So if there is a unwholesome, because there will be all resultant chittas, ये सब तो कर्मों का फल है ना, so they are vipak chittas. So out of that list of vipak chittas which we had studied, that the nature of that vipak chitta will determine which birth I will get. So if the
121
after 121, only the vipak chittas, which are the resultant chittas, they will determine. Others are process chittas. So for example, I have written on some things, So there is a mental state number 19 जो उस list में थी. This unwholesome resultant mental state perform the function of bhavanga for beings in the 4 woeful planes. So if there is unwholesome resultant mental state, you go to the woeful plane, which means animal or ghost or others. And if the karma vipaka which arises just before the death is a wholesome resultant mental state without roots, it is rootless, then it will produce human beings, but they will have some congenital defects. They will not have all the senses in good shape. They may have some eyesight problem or hearing problem or any other deformity, what we call disability of various types. So only when there are resultant states with roots, only then a human being will be born without, or a human being or a deva will be born. And then whether it is prompted or unprompted will determine whether the functions, because if it is prompted, it will be spontaneous. And depending on the feeling will be the nature of the person. If the last chitta arises with a pleasant feeling, the person will be joyful in the next life. So this way, that kind of detailed description is available, that which chitta will arise. जो चित्त और चेतसिका जो है, जो हमने को बनाए थे ना, आपको याद होगा, table and all that. So in that table form, that relationship has been kind of identified, which chitta will give rise to this. I have written here also briefly.
लेकिन जैसे जो मरने वाला है उसको क्या पता मेरा चित्त कैसा,
तो कर्म का फल है,
और जो पैदा होने वाला है उसको भी क्या पता कि मैं, ये सब
पता तो है ही नहीं, तो अपने आप हो रहा है.
इन सबका मतलब हमें क्या,
इस सबका संयोजन ये है कि हम सजग रहें कि इस तरह के चित्त न जगाएं. ये जो कर्म विभाग जागेगा वो इन्हीं में से कुछ होगा ना. तो अगर हम जीवन में सजग रहें कि इस तरह के अकुशल चित्त न जगाएं, तो चांस काफी है कि मृत्यु के समय पे कोई जो भी हमारा अच्छे कर्म होंगे तो उसका फल आएगा.
दूसरा आपने कहा ना कि आगे अगर लास्ट चित्त वो प्लेयर है, मतलब तो आगे का जीवन कुछ मतलब प्लेयरफुल होगा,
जॉयफुल होगा.
हाँ, तो क्यों होगा जॉयफुल? जरूरत क्या है जॉयफुल की? जैसा भी हो आखिरकार मनुष्य को जीवन में
जरूरत की मतलब नहीं है, मतलब जवाब डिस्क्रिप्शन है. इट्स नॉट ए क्वेश्चन ऑफ व्हाट आई वांट. There's no question. It is a question of description, what is happening. If I am aware and things are spontaneously happening, then with a pleasant feeling, ठीक है, अगर चित्त जो लास्ट चित्त जो कार्मिक विपाक जागा, अगर उसमें प्लेजेंट फीलिंग जागेगी, सो उस मनुष्य अगले जन्म में he will be of a joyful nature. उसमें ये नहीं हो रहा कि अच्छा है कि बुरा है कि क्या है, ऐसा होके रहेगा, ये रिजल्ट होगा. अगर वो प्रॉम्प्टेड चित्ता है, मतलब वीक चित्ता है, स्पॉन्टेनियस चित्ता मतलब स्ट्रांग है, उसमें रूट्स जो है स्ट्रांग है. अगर वीक है, जैसे पैसिव आदमी होता है, लेजीनेस है किसी की, तो नेक्स्ट लाइफ में जो है वो फिर वैसा ही होगा. काइंड ऑफ पैसिव पर्सन, वेरी सीरियस टाइप पर्सन, थिंग्स लाइक दैट. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ मैपिंग इज डन. इस तरह के तो उसका मतलब यही है कि अगर हम इस जीवन में जब हम सजग हैं, होश में हैं, तो वी शुड वर्क टू क्रिएट दोज काइंड ऑफ पॉजिटिव चित्तास. और ऑफ कोर्स आइडियल इज to get it out of this, to get out of all this whole process itself.
So Silesh has a question that can we also say that various lokas are within the realm of human life?
It's not. I mean, according to Buddhas, it's not true. I mean, we of course experience here various things. As human beings also we can experience the feelings of animals, feelings of devas, we all experience depending on what arises at every moment. Sometimes those unwholesome chittas arise and we feel the same pain as an animal would feel. Sometimes wholesome chittas arise, divine abodes, we practice Brahma Viharas, then we are experiencing the same feelings as devas would feel. But according to Buddha, there are existing lokas of that kind. Of course, animal loka we see, birds, animals, we are able to see them. Ghosts and things we are not able to see. Devas we are not able to see because we don't have that ability to perceive other lokas.
बट वो तो सबके ट्रू होगा कि वो सब फीलिंग्स तो अगर एनिमल है उसके अंदर भी वो सारी फीलिंग्स उस लाइफ स्पैन के अंदर आई नहीं है. और हो सकता है कि देवताओं और घोष के अंदर भी वो सब चीजें चलेंगी, क्योंकि वो चित्त तो उसने हर तरह के जो कर्म किए हैं उसके
जो रेजिडुअल हैं, अगर हैं रेजिडुअल उस तरह के अनहोलसम, तो बट क्योंकि वो देवलोक में गया है तो वहां पे ऐसी कंडीशंस होती नहीं है कि उसको वो चित्त जागृत हो सके.
So Srinivas ji is asking the question, I think which came last time also, that the penultimate chitta, how can it exist after the Chuti chitta has arisen? In the sense that once the Chuti chitta arises,
we normally tend to think, I also used to think like that this sequence of chittas in one influences another action. It's not really like that. So when you study Patthana, then you realize there are influences transcending time and space. So one chitta can manifest after years. It can show its effect on this. So the example, those various Patthana when we study conditional relationships. So all these conditional relationships are not immediate. Some of them are delayed response. So its example is given that some trees fruit immediately, some trees give fruit within few months, some trees give fruit after few years. So depending on the nature of the karma, the impact can be felt in subsequent chittas also. So especially the decisive supports condition, it is called, which can have its impact after many chittas have passed. So it's not that the chitta which arises now will affect the next, immediately next. That can also be there, but it can also be influenced by the past chittas, because that influence is carried on in the stream of consciousness in a latent form. So when we'll study Patthana, then we'll see that complexity of relationships.
But in simple terms, we can say कि जो कर्म का जो फल है, वो कब आएगा आपको पता नहीं है, इमीडिएट भी हो सकता है, बाद में भी हो सकता है।
लेकिन सबके जीवन के साथ ऐसा होगा,
सबका नहीं है।
जैसे आप मान लो आपके कर्म का फल कोई इमीडिएट मिल गया, मेरे को उसका कोई कर्म का फल इमीडिएट नहीं मिला, ऐसा
वो इस समय की स्थिति पे भी डिपेंड करेगा ना। जो मैंने कर्म पिछले जन्म में किए हैं उनका फल आज आने वाला है, तो वो कितने इंटेंसिटी से आएगा, इट विल डिपेंड ऑन माय प्रेजेंट स्टेट ऑफ माइंड आल्सो। ऐसा नहीं है कि एग्जैक्टली वही का वही, इट्स नॉट व्हाट इज कॉल्ड फैटलिस्टिक सिस्टम की ऐसा किया तो ऐसा ही होगा, उस तरह की परिस्थिति होगी। अकुशल कर्म किया है तो अप्रिय परिस्थिति सामने आएगी। अब वो अप्रिय परिस्थिति किस रूप में आएगी वो इस समय के कर्म पे भी डिपेंडेंट है। तो नो, इट्स नॉट ए वन टू वन।
इस मोमेंट पे क्या आप रिएक्शन
किस तरह नहीं, किस तरह का आपकी मेंटल स्टेट है जब वो फल पैदा हुआ, देन डिपेंडिंग ऑन दैट इट विल मैनिफेस्ट इन डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स। So if you see the slide number 13, I'll just try to put that in brief. Human birth and that in Devlokas is the result of Kushala Kamma. And Kushala Kamma which is powerful, which has roots, not rootless. Then the Patisandhi Chitta arising in the sense realm is the result of Kushala Vipaka Chittas. Kama Uchar. And depending on the nature and intensity of the roots and mental factors which are present or absent, one is born in different circumstances with different physical features. Somebody is born handsome, somebody is born ugly, somebody is born with defects, somebody is born with great intelligence. So it all depends on those kind of things. Then if you have Akushala Vipak Chitta, it will lead to birth in woeful planes, which means the lower four planes. If we have Rupa Vichara Vipaka Chittas, if you have performed doing those Rupa Dhyanas, it will lead to Rupa Vichara Lokas. If you are doing Arupa Dhyanas, it will lead to Arupa Vichara Lokas. That's how the relationship is identified. So if you are doing Dhyanas, then the birth in the various Devlokas is likely. If you have established, and that karma arises at that time. संतीरण मतलब इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग चित्ता, वो उसमें पढ़े थे ना, देयर विल संतीरण चित्ता, then there was the sampatichana chitta, those are there which are functional chitta which can arise. We will I think study them again here also in the process chittas. Steps to cognition में पढ़ेंगे तो फिर वो दोबारा आ जाएंगे. Then some description of bhavanga chitta is given. So the Bhavanga Chitta in the 14th succeeds the first Chitta in the life, the Patisandhi Chitta. So we can see Patisandhi Chitta is arising primarily because of the penultimate Chitta of the previous life. Then Patisandhi Chitta will be succeeded by next Chitta, that will be the Bhavanga Chitta, and that will continue throughout the life as the what you can call it subconscious mind, or in the modern language. So when the Patisandhi Chitta falls away, it conditions the arising of next Chitta, the second Chitta in that life, and this is the first Bhavanga Chitta of this life. And this of course is a Vipak Chitta, which is the result of same karma which produced the Patisandhi Chitta. Now, not only the first Bhavanga Chitta, but all Bhavanga Chittas arising during a lifespan are the result of the karma which produced the Patisandhi Chitta. So they are that Bhavanga Chitta does not get changed, it remains the same because it has the latent tendencies which arose at the time of the rebirth. So it remains the same, and that's why when the life ends, that very chitta is the ending of the this life.
चित्त जब राइज होता है तो भवंग चित्त कहाँ होता है?
उसके बाद जो होगा उसको भवंग चित्त है,
उसके बाद आया,
क्योंकि उसके बाद person will be subconscious. He won't be conscious na? When a person is immediately, he won't be awake. So having understood this basic thing, then we can see how in detail how cognition happens. हम देखते कैसे हैं उसमें process की और subdivisions किए गए हैं. So supposing हम सो रहे हैं, we are sleeping in deep sleep, then Bhavanga Chitta is formed, which is a kind of unconscious or subconscious Chitta which is keeping us alive. And that has the same nature as So because it does not have any karmic impact, it doesn't get influence, so it gives rise to peaceful feeling. तो senses से interact नहीं कर रहा है, कोई nothing, कोई craving aversion नहीं arise हो रहा है, then it gives rise to a sense of feel. That's why in deep sleep you feel very peaceful and nice.
Sleep is not deep.
Then there is dreams, then the mind is operating. So then manovinyana is operating. You will create craving, aversion, all kind of things will happen.
तो भ्रम में तब भी चल रहा है?
नहीं, तब नहीं चलेगा. At that time it is process is happening. Process is happening.
तो वो चित्त भी जब ड्रीम्स आ रहे हैं, चाहे वो ठीक अच्छे हैं बुरे, तो वो भी कुछ फॉर्म करता है. हाँ. उसका भी कुछ मतलब लाइफ पर असर.
मनोविज्ञान तो चल रहा है ना.
अच्छा.
मनोविज्ञान
मतलब वो चलेगा.
Manovinyan is operating and then we may be reacting to it or creating craving, aversion.
तो जो डीप स्लीप में मनोविज्ञान तो काम नहीं कर रहा.
डीप स्लीप में तो कुछ भी नहीं कर रहा है, सिर्फ भवंग चित्त ऑपरेट कर रहा है. सबकॉन्शियस, जस्ट टू कीप अस अलाइव.
बट अगर मनोविज्ञान नहीं है, कोई डीप स्लीप में अगर टच कर रहा है तो
वो बताए हैं ना, वही तो आगे बता रहे हैं. What happens when we wake up? How do we wake up in deep sleep from there? So if the object is presented to the sense door, मान लीजिए मैं गहराई से सो रहा हूँ और कोई लाइट जला देता है, हल्की लाइट है तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. And now depending on the intensity there will be the impact. So there is these intensities identified, very great, just a matter of thing. So suppose there is a very strong intensity light, then it disturbs the bhavana chitta and it is finally arrested, so it gets stopped and the process chitta begins to arise. So that's how things happen. Now that process chitta arising also happens through a sequence. So in one chitta, the bhavana chitta will be disturbed, then the bhavana chitta will be arrested, means stopped. Then the 5-door adverting consciousness, अगर आपको याद हो उसमें हमने ये पढ़े थे सब, 5-door adverting consciousness, which means the impact has produced on this body-mind complex and the consciousness arises which figures out कहाँ पे हुआ है, क्या हुआ. Because you are arising from subconscious level, so the 5-door adverting consciousness says, oh, okay, light has come, so then eye consciousness will begin to arise. And then that eye consciousness arises, then it will receive that. So there will be a receiving consciousness. These are all very, infinitesimal mind movement phenomena which are happening. And then there will be investigation of what is this light coming. So there will be an infinitesimal moment of investigation of the phenomena. So that is what is the Santirana Chitta which you are talking about.
ये तो process को हिंदी में क्या कहेंगे? Process part.
वित्थी चित्ता कहते हैं. वित्थी का मतलब होता है street. So this is like a kind of a line or a sequence of events.
तो एक टाइम या तो भाव में रहेगा या वित्थी चित्ता.
जब हम अवेक हैं तब तो वित्थी चित्ता है. अभी अवेक हैं और देख रहे हैं और उस पर इंटरेक्ट कर रहे हैं. जब हम when we are awake and not seeing anything, सब जैसे हम आँख बंद कर ध्यान कर रहे हैं, we are not seeing anything, suppose we are not hearing anything and we are totally detached from all interactions of the world, and then if we are not sensing also anything, so then we can go into sleep. So ध्यान करते करते भी कई बार आदमी को झपकी से आ जाते है, उठता है तो फिर बहुत फ्रेश हो जाता है. तो person becomes doubtful कि have I experienced Nibbana or have I gone to sleep? Because in this Bhavanga Chitta also gives you peacefulness of the mind. So that's why the kind of confusion can happen.
जब हम जैसे ध्यान में सेंसेशन देख रहे हैं तो वो तो फिर वित्थी चित्ता ही चल रहा है.
Then activity is going on. Yeah, then no, not only that, feelings are arising, they are being felt, then we may be reacting to them or not reacting to them. So then the process is going on.
तो दोनों में से एक रहेगा तो हमारा वित्थी चित्ता
है. Both simultaneously नहीं रहेंगे. जब प्रोसेस चित्ता नहीं होगा तब भवंग चित्ता will take over to maintain the life continuum.
सर तो ये भी जरूरी नहीं है कि कोई डीप स्लीप में हो.
हाँ, डीप स्लीप में होते हैं क्या? बहुत कम होते हैं.
डीप स्लीप में होते हैं.
हाँ, बट कंपैरेटिवली कम होते हैं.
लेकिन जो डीप स्लीप से उठ के जब हम होते हैं फ्रेश, वो किसका परिणाम है?
भवंग चित्त का परिणाम.
भवंग चित्त का परिणाम है या हमारे को कुछ आगे मिला है? मतलब
कुछ नहीं. Deep sleep is डीप स्लीप में जो रेस्ट मिलता है, क्योंकि हमने उस समय क्रेविंग और अवर्शन नहीं जलाया उतना टाइम, तो मन शांत हो जाता है, अच्छा लगता है।
डीप स्लीप जो है ना, हम खुद ही थोड़ी, मतलब वो तो अपने आप आ जाती है।
हाँ, वो डिपेंड करता है ना किस तरह का मन की स्थिति है। अगर हमारा मन सोने से पहले बेचैन है तो डीप स्लीप क्या स्लीप ही नहीं आएगी। होता है ना, हमने कोई ऐसी न्यूज सुन ली, कोई ऐसी झगड़ा हो गया, कुछ हो गया, भय जाग गया, तो नींद ही नहीं आती। नींद तो तभी आती है जब थोड़ा मन रिलेटिवली क्वाइट होता है, और डीप स्लीप तब आएगी जब बिल्कुल।
ये सब तो अपने आप ही हो रहा है ना, डीप स्लीप
हाँ,
आ रही है, मतलब हमारे विचारों
अपने आप
पर
मतलब
आधारित है वैसे।
हाँ, हमारे मन की स्थिति पे
पर आधारित है, लेकिन
अगर हम दिन भर हंगामा ही करेंगे तो स्लीप भी नहीं आएगी, है ना।
या जो सपने आते जो भी है, मतलब
सपने तो सबकॉन्शियस माइंड की जो ट्रिगर हो रहे हैं, वो तो डीप स्लीप नहीं रही ना।
हाँ, नहीं।
तो उस प्रोसेस में जो कॉग्निशन में कई सारी प्रोसेस इन्वॉल्व हैं, जैसे ये वी हैव भवंग चित्ता, जैसे 16 इसमें 15 में कहा था ना कि भवंग चित्ता पहले डिस्टर्ब होगा, फिर वो अरेस्ट हो जाएगा, देन 5 डोर एडवर्टिंग कॉन्शियसनेस विल फाइंड आउट कहाँ पे गड़बड़ हुई, देन दे से आई कॉन्शियसनेस अराइजेस, देन इट विल बी the eye consciousness means just 1 millionth of a second of just something is there, then that whatever impact has fallen, it has to be understood. So there will be two chittas, one will be receiving consciousness and investigating consciousness, and then that there is a determining consciousness which determines what is the actually. Now these things are happening at such a quick fast pace that we can't really see them individually. For us, what we see is the javana chitta, which is the actual process. It occurs for 7 mind moments, which after determining chitta, and that is here where we react to them. जो इनपुट आया, हमने जो देखा, अच्छा था, बुरा था, ये था, वो था, क्योंकि सारी चीजें हो गई, उसकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन भी हो गई, डिटरमिन भी हो गई, ये दिस फॉर्म आई डोंट लाइक टू सी, और दिस साउंड आई डोंट लाइक इट, देन ड्यूरिंग द जावना फेज द कार्मिक इन्फ्लुएंस बिगिंस टू टेक प्लेस।
ये सब चीजें तो अपने आप ही हो रही ना।
हाँ, they are
हम
happening
कुछ
on
नहीं
their
कर
own.
रहे हैं।
They are happening on their own because we are alive. This is how it is a description of what is happening. Abhidhamma is a description of what actually is happening. That's all. So you can see then the example which is given in the Abhidhamma Sangha is that of a man who is sleeping below a mango tree. I had mentioned it last time. When suppose a man is deeply asleep, and a mango falls from the tree on the ground, and there's a sound. So then the sound, if it is strong, then it will disturb his bhavanga chitta, will be disturbed, there will be arrested, then there will be say 5 door adverting consciousness will arise, and it will immediately see, oh, there is some sound, and then depending on the receiving and determining it, if it is determined, and then there will be reactions depending on that. So he may think कि कोई मारने आ गया मुझे या कुछ, whatever kind of reaction happens, then he may wake up, then he sees something, then the moment he sees, there will be another chain of consciousness which will arise, and then he will see the object, he will determine it, and then अपने हाथ में उठा के देखेगा क्या है, और जो मैंगो है कच्चा है कि पक्का है, you know, that kind of investigation will happen, determination will happen, and then if it is good, he'll eat it. So eating of it is compared to the javana phase, when you are kind of creating the karmic response. So this is the way explanation is given, and in a diagrammatic form it is shown in the 17th. And from the point of view of an I-door cognitive process, that how we see. So we are asleep, and then suddenly a light comes and we are wake up. So these are the various stages which I mentioned. There's a process-free portion. Then the V is the vibrating, the bhavanga chitta is disturbed, then A is the arresting of bhavanga chitta, then F is the 5 door adverting consciousness. So in this case, then I consciousness, then receiving consciousness, then investigating consciousness, then determining consciousness, then the 7 types of moments of javana, which means evaluation, and then there is registering consciousness. In certain, if the impact is strong, it also gets registered. Javana is the stage of impulsion. Impulsion मतलब जिसमें हम उस पर रिएक्ट करते हैं, जो भी देखा हमने या सुना या टेस्ट किया. So that reaction is what forms the karma. Everything else is not going, because this is where our self comes into picture, our impact occurs. So this is how the 17 mind movements are needed for a comprehensive cognition of phenomena.
रजिस्टिंग वाला है, ये दो फेज में है। जो रजिस्टिंग
दो mind movement.
It can be one or two mind movements. They're not, I mean, depending on the
it could be 16 or 17.
yeah. This in fact, under certain conditions they may not even be 17. If the impact is not very strong, it may be lesser. If the impact is very feeble, the even the arresting may not happen. If the impact is very slight, the person may arrest.
Very strong, strong.
मतलब साउंड सुनी, उसको लगी साउंड है, और छोड़ा यार सो गया. It doesn't bother about it because the impact is not strong. लेकिन अगर गोली चलेगी तो बड़े बड़े जाग जाएंगे कि कुछ हुआ. So depending on the intensity of the, whether it is great or slight, or if it is very slight, we ignore, we don't even feel that, nothing happens. You're sleeping और लोग बात गहरी नींद में सो रहा है, वो बातें कर रहे हैं, उसे कुछ नहीं मालूम, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा. Because it's not impacting him, it's not a very great impact. So depending on the intensity of the impact, the chitta may be disturbed, and this we cannot verify. It happens in our day-to-day life, isn't it?
Silesh has a question, sir. Previously it was 7 mind movements for cognition. Now it's 17. So
No, 7 नहीं थे.
7.
7 were those javana phases, which are the impulsion. So this is the total process from sleep to wake up. So from the P is the past bhavanga chitta. Okay. So before P it was all bhavanga chitta operating. So what is written as P means the past bhavanga chitta, which got disturbed. So there was vibration of the bhavanga chitta, that's called vibrating chitta, means disturbance. Then that chitta gets arrested. If the disturbance is strong, sufficiently strong to arrest it, then it will get arrested. And then the process will start. First 5-door consciousness, then I consciousness, in this case I consciousness. It is received, investigated, determined, then 7 moments of impulsion, which means reaction on that. Liking, disliking. This is where the karma operates. And then the receiving of that consciousness.
लास्ट में फिर हम बी के लेते हैं भगवान.
B is again Bhavan. Process is stopped.
Process stop, it may be wrong or it may be.
It may be stream, yeah. It may be the next stream. Depending on this, then there may be.
It could
be the process continued for that process. Normally, it's going to be process. So it's only an explanation of one moment of cognition. So normally we tend to think कि आँख आई और देख लिया हमने. हमसे इतना ही पता चलता है, सामने ऑब्जेक्ट था, दिख गया. But actually, at deeper level, so many phenomena are happening.
So the next time it may start from number 4 or number 1. After 17, अगर भवन नहीं है,
टॉप हो गया ना, फिर तो वो it will start from the 5-door adverting consciousness. Bhavanga is stopped. Now, supposing I see, then there is a sound also. देख रहा हूँ, फिर sound will, then that process will start. Seeing, smell I, then that process will start. And seeing may continue for a long time because the object which is there is continuing to be there, and then we may keep on seeing it and reacting in different ways. अभी इसको देखा, फिर लगा अच्छा है, और देखा. So that because seeing process will continue for some time. ये तो सिर्फ उतना बिल्कुल infinitesimal आई कॉन्शियसनेस की अराइजिंग की बात बताई गई. नॉर्मली तो हम जैसे अभी ये सामने चीजें पड़ी हैं, मैं आपको देख रहा हूँ, तो इट लास्ट्स quite some time. So it means millions of chittas will arise, pass away, and then depending on the state of the mind, I may react. शुरू में मैंने आपको देखा, फिर मैंने और ध्यान से देखा, तो फिर कुछ और रिएक्शन आया, फिर कोई और रिएक्शन हुआ, फिर कुछ और रिएक्शन हुआ. So this way it keeps on building.
So पिछले स्लाइड से जब एक रीबर्थ वाली जो मेरी स्लाइड थी, उसमें सिलेश का एक क्वेश्चन था that if ultimate goal is nirvana, one needs a body, right? Then so why would one want arupa loka?
Yeah, it's not a question of wanting. As I said, we don't have a choice at the time of death. हमसे कोई पूछने वाला नहीं है कि कहाँ जा रहे हो, कहाँ जाना है. What we have done throughout the life is going to determine. अगर हमने अरूप ध्यान बहुत किए हैं, क्योंकि रूप ध्यान करने में इतना I mean, सामान्य भी थोड़ा भी दूसरा तीसरा ध्यान भी लगता है तो बड़ा शांत हो जाता है ना, मन अच्छा लगता है. So if you get trapped in that dhyana, then you do this. And then you say, stay in that रूप ध्यान लोका, रूप ब्रह्म लोका for eons. तो ठीक है, peacefully रह रहे हैं आप.
बट असल में डिसाइड तो हम ही कर रहे हैं उस चीज को.
In a sense, but actually उस मोमेंट पे तो नहीं कर रहे हैं ना. सारा लाइफ जो हमने किया है वो डिसाइड करेगा कि क्या होगा.
But then the Silesh is asking the further question that but jhana practice is for Arupa Loka.
Yeah.
Arupa Loka in the present.
No, dhyana practice, Arupa dhyana means you are using a formless object like a space or infinite consciousness, imagination, mental imagination. We are using that for concentration. And when you use that for concentration, mind gets deeply absorbed and very peaceful. And you can begin to enjoy it. And if you begin to enjoy it, then you won't feel like moving from there to investigating the impermanence. You don't feel like bothering about the impermanence of that pleasure and happiness. Only when we investigate the impermanence and impersonality, then only we'll be free, not otherwise. Only when we see through the limitation of that. If we are not able to see through, then we are trapped. That's why the Ajahn Sumedho tells कि कोई खास जरूरत नहीं है वो सब करने की.
And that's what Silesh is asking, why do jhana practice?
Yeah, there are the people who advocate, who are working in that direction. It's well known that it's not necessary. You only need concentration to the extent of Upchar Samadhi or Appana Samadhi. That's enough. First or second jhana are good enough. Minimum concentration to chahiye. But more than that is not necessary. But it is helpful. If one does up to fourth jhana, then the investigating power becomes so strong that you can break into it. नॉर्मली तो नहीं करते, बट जो सुनते हैं भगवान के उसमें आठ बात
है. जैसे जो सच पठान में 4 ध्यान तक ही भगवान ने बात
की. Last to last session, I think we read that Buddha has located 2 modes of practice. One is a jhana practice.
Yeah.
Where
jhana was strongly recommended by him, but he said they will not lead to liberation. That also is very clear.
But we can use dhyanas.
We can use for using them for investigation. You develop that strong concentration, then investigation becomes easier. But if you get trapped and don't investigate, then you remain in that domain.
So then the answer to Silesh's question is that jhana practice can help us in investigation.
Certainly. As the 4 jhanas do help us. But once you get into the other formless ones, then it becomes more difficult.
Because many times जब सेट ऑफ ध्यानस आते हैं, जब अरूप ध्यानस आते हैं, उसके बाद एक एक करके वो उसमें सुत्ता से दिखाया जाता है कि यू अल्टीमेटली इन द एंड यू रीच निब्बाना. दैट्स द सीक्वेंस ऑफ when the dhyanas.
No, in the sequence of dhyanas, nibbana is not mentioned. It's mentioned, there are suttas where Buddha is clearly mentioned, they are what are called pleasant abidings.
Okay.
And he says that unless you do investigation and get disenchanted by them, now imagine getting disenchanted from a jhana of that kind.
तो ध्यान के बाद निर्वाण नहीं मिल सकता. ध्यान
ऑटोमेटिक नहीं होगा ना जब तक आप इन्वेस्टिगेट नहीं करेंगे.
तो ध्यान में इन्वेस्टिगेट नहीं होता है.
ध्यान में मतलब अब्जॉर्प्शन अगर हम कर रहे हैं, स्ट्रांगली मन को बिल्कुल समाहित कर लिया, तो फिर कहाँ इन्वेस्टिगेट करेंगे.
मतलब उसमें इन्वेस्टिगेशन
बुद्धा सेज दैट ये तो हम पे निर्भर है ना, हम कर रहे हैं नहीं कर रहे हैं. प्राइमरीली तो नहीं है ना.
ध्यान में अगर ध्यान करते हैं उसमें नहीं है. वही मैं पूछ रहा.
इवन इन आनापान जब उनको करते हैं तब तुमको ये कहा जाता है कि देखो कि ये अनित्य है, नहीं कहा जाता ना. आनापान के दौरान
नहीं,
ये
ऐसे
बात
तो नहीं कहा जाता, पर ये तो पता है सांस आ रहा जा
पता
रहा
की
है।
बात अलग है, आप समझ नहीं रहे, इंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं दी जाती ना। आनापान करने के दौरान इंस्ट्रक्शन ये नहीं दी जाती कि देखो ये अनित्य है, बदल रहा है,
नहीं,
उसके
नहीं
बाद दी जाती है
हाँ,
इंस्ट्रक्शन।
नहीं पर नहीं दी जाती,
इसीलिए नहीं दी जाती क्योंकि उसका उद्देश्य ध्यान कर ऑब्जॉर्व करना है। जब जिस तरह से गुरुजी ध्यान कराते हैं, उसमें आनापान का उद्देश्य है उनका है कि उससे मन को समाहित करना। समाहित करना मतलब अगर हम जब 10 दिन ध्यान करेंगे, मान लीजिए 10 दिन करते हैं ध्यान आनापान, तो चित्त पहला दूसरा ध्यान लग जाता है। 20 दिन करेंगे हो सकता है चौथा ध्यान भी लग जाए।
अच्छा,
तो लेकिन उसमें इन्वेस्टिगेट नहीं कर, इन्वेस्टिगेट करेंगे तो ध्यान डूबेगा ही नहीं। आप तो इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रहे हैं, फिर समाहित कैसे होगा चित्त? तो चित्त नहीं होगा ना समाहित। इसलिए कहते हैं कि आप पहले इस चित्त को इतना गहराई से समाहित कर लो, उसके बाद इन्वेस्टिगेट करोगे तो इन्वेस्टिगेशन भी अच्छी होगी और क्विक हो जाएगी। देन यू विल बी एबल टू इन्वेस्टिगेट वेरी पावरफुली because the mind is extremely sharp. But it is not a necessary thing. You can have reasonable level of concentration and still investigate.
बट लेकिन लोग ध्यान क्यों करते हैं अगर उनको मुक्ति हो जाए? मतलब उसका कोई वो
फायदा, चित्त शांत होता है ना।
हाँ,
इसलिए करते हैं, चित्त शांत होता है, अच्छा लगता है। अच्छा लगता है तो इसलिए भी करते हैं। चित्त शांत हो जाता है, बहुत अच्छा लगता है। जो परेशान है वो करेगा ना, हमको तो अच्छा ही लगेगा ना।
जैसे ध्यान शांत हो गया फिर अशांति भी तो हो सकता है, कुछ ट्रिगर हो जाए
वो तो हो जाए तो ठीक है, तभी तो कहते हैं कि वो अनित्य है भाई। जो ध्यान से प्राप्त होने वाली शांति है वो भी अनित्य है। वो उतनी समझ हमको बना के रखनी है अनुभव करते समय। अभी तो हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, अनुभव तो हो नहीं रहा। अगर हम ध्यान कर रहे हैं चौथे ध्यान में और उस समय हमको ये सजगता रहे, फिर हम इन्वेस्टिगेट करें कि क्या हो रहा है, ये नित्य है कि अनित्य है, बदल रहा है कि नहीं बदल रहा है। ये अगर अनित्य है तो अनसेटिस्फैक्ट्री है, तो उसके प्रति भी डिस्पैशन जागे। देन यू विल बी
दोनों चीजें साथ साथ चल सकती हैं, ध्यान के साथ इन्वेस्टिगेशन
कैसे चलेगा? आप खुद सोचो ना, कैसे चलेगा? इन्वेस्टिगेशन में आप इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रहे हो कि वो प्रिय है कि अप्रिय है, परमानेंट है कि इम्परमानेंट है।
आप ध्यान करते हुए अगर ये आता है कि इन्वेस्टिगेशन,
तो फिर वो गहराई से ध्यान, चौथा ध्यान तो नहीं लगेगा ना, ये तो नहीं हो सकता।
तो ध्यान को क्यों इतना महत्व दिया जाता है?
Because it is helpful.
When it is not a good liberation.
Yeah, it's all right. People want peace also. People want peace of mind also. People want to live properly.
हमने एक बार डिस्कस भी किया था कि it becomes pleasant abiding for monks.
Yeah, that's what Buddha says.
Pleasant abiding.
Pleasant abiding, no, शांति से अच्छी तरह से रह सकते हैं ना।
Monks की लाइफ में मतलब और ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता, so then sometimes they can pleasantly abide.
Buddha himself mentioned the practices dhyana of pleasant abiding, peaceful abiding. Of course, Buddha used to experience nibbana every time.
But अगर आप इन्वेस्टिगेट करेंगे even then you can live peacefully. अब उसमें भी तो आपके राग द्वेष कम हो रहे हैं and you can live peacefully.
वो तो डिपेंड करता है। It is a matter of arising and passing away at that moment. When you are, when I am doing practice to concentrate my mind, the peacefulness is the immediate result of that. When I am doing investigation, peacefulness is not necessarily the immediate result. Only if I am a arahant, then there will be immediate result. Because there will be no defilement in the mind. If I am not an arahant, investigation may give rise to anything. It may throw up a sankhara which will disturb the mind at that time.
ऐसा सर जैसे ये भी होता है कि सांस भी हम देख रहे हैं और पेशाब कर रहे हैं, दोनों चीजें
साथ साथ करते हैं। Then we are not likely to get into jhanas. We are talking of jhanas.
पश्चिम में तो वो ये ना इन्वेस्टिगेशन ही है, मतलब
तो दोनों चीजें मतलब जैसे जो
सांस को समाधि की तरफ तो जा रहे हैं, तो समाधि की तरफ लीड है
थोड़ा सा।
समाधि थोड़ी बहुत जरूरी है। समाधि के बाद कैसे काम होगा? ठीक है, समाधि की जरूरत है। तो इसलिए अगर हम सांस को भी देख रहे हैं और शरीर को देख रहे हैं तो चित्त समाहित रहता है, वो इधर उधर उच्छृंखल नहीं होता। लेकिन उस स्थिति से चौथा ध्यान नहीं लगने वाला है या तीसरा ध्यान नहीं लगने वाला।
तो उससे अच्छा मेरे को ये लगता है, मतलब जैसे मैं खुद प्रैक्टिस में यही बजाय मन इधर उधर जाए उसके दूसरे हिस्से को यहाँ पे रोकने, तो वो कंफर्ट
इट्स वेरी हेल्पफुल। If you can be mindful of whatever is happening, including the breath. Breath की साथ एक default अगर हम बना के रखते हैं तो मन comparatively कम भागता है. So the next one was the effect of clarity of the object. So depending on the strength of the external object which is impinging, there will be different impacts. So if the object is very clear, there will be complete 17 mind movements. If it is very mild, just the object, the process will end with jhavana, there will be no registration. If it is obscure, then the process will end at the mind door itself, mind door adverting. And very obscure, then बहुत ही हल्का है, so there is mere vibration of bhavanga and the stream is not arrested even. You continue to be in that state of bhavanga. Of course, every sense door process will be followed by a mind door process. Because that is at the mind door process that the analysis happens, perception arises and things of that kind will arise. So after every sense door process, many bhavangas arise and pass away, and this is followed by mind door cognitive process, because then mind evaluates what is happening. So which takes the mental image of the previous object, for example its color or form or shape, and then investigates the kya. So the mind door process normally has only 12 movements, and they are explained. Again, same thing, vibrating and arresting and mind door process, jhavana, registering, and they again follow one after one another in order to cognize the form, the shape, the name. All that has to happen. Perception has to arise. So perception is a mental phenomenon which will arise. So that will happen at the mind door consciousness, because mind will evaluate कि ये फूल है, कि ये पहचानने की कोशिश करेगा उसको. मान लीजिए कोई चीज देखता है तो पहचानते हैं उसको. So all that happens in a rapid fire process in the mind. So that is the mind door which happens consequently. But mind door process can also happen on its own when we think, isn't it? So every sense door consciousness will be followed by mind door, but when we are thinking, then there is no sense door perception happening. Even then, for example, in sleep, dreams, we have only mind door process operating. So there can be a mind door natural process which occurs because of memory. You are reflecting on something, you are imagining something, then the only mind door process operates. These other sense doors are not operating. Now, we come to the 21st as to what are we really trying to learn from this, all this analysis, what we learn. One thing is clear again, that there is no seeing, there is no seer, there is only seeing process. Seeing meaning in general. There is only hearing process, no hearer, no person who is hearing. It is happening naturally, automatically. There is no intervention of ego in the process of hearing. It's all automatic process happening. And we have seen it in full detail. Then I have made some reflections which are not normally a part of the Abhidhamma Sangraha. That how does this sense sphere consciousness arise at all? Normally we talk of there is an I, there is an object, and there are proper conditions, then sense door operates. And the I consciousness will arise.
Which slide is that?
See, मैंने भेजे नहीं थे 21. I अलग से भेजी थी.
अलग से भेजी थी.
दोबारा भी नहीं.
नहीं, मैंने यहाँ पे तो शेयर कर दी. बाकी मैंने पुरानी ईमेल
शॉट्स जो
जिसको फिर बाद में भेजते हैं. You can just reflect on it. These are my kind of these are not, I am not, there is no authority on behind them, so they may be wrong. So just reflect on them in that manner. So what I am trying to point out is that how does the sense sphere consciousness arise? The point which we normally study is of course clear. But one thing which we omit is the role of the very fact that consciousness is arising because we are alive. It's not that eye is there, object is there, brain is there, light is there. They should be working. So the life force, which is a ever-present thing, we tend to ignore it. So the role of the life force is there. And this life faculty is actually the efficient cause of all that we are doing or seeing. We are alive, that's why we are seeing. We are alive, that's why we are doing. Isn't it? And this life faculty is like a force, it's a formless thing. And it could therefore be seen as the efficient cause of all the vijnanas. So when I was studying Ajahn Chah's book sometime, he even mentions actually that we normally talk of 6 conscious vijnanas, but effectively they are all one. They are manifesting through different doors. So when I reflected on it, I could see that because it is translated from Thai to this and that, so we never know what he actually spoke. So what is obvious, at least to me, is that this is obviously one common denominator of all consciousness is the fact of life. Jivitindriya, which we have studied already, is a universal mental factor, which is present because that's how we are alive. नहीं वो फिर वो टेक्निकली उसको वैसे we have to distinguish that. Chitta is a consciousness part of it. Now that is a reflection of life force. That is the life force is the fundamental cause.
लाइफ फोर्स तो वही है ना कि हमारा चित्त है और जो है शरीर है जो हम बोल रहे हैं 6 सेंसेस हैं प्लस
हमने
इसीलिए अलाइव है कि उसके अंदर चित्त
we're not discussing our experience, and we are discussing Abhidhamma. In Abhidhamma we आप शायद नहीं थे ना क्या तो उस जब हमने स्टडी किए थे ना मेंटल फैक्टर्स तो लाइफ और जीवित इंद्रिय इज मेंटल फैक्टर. There are 7 universal mental factors which are present with every chitta, and Jivit Indriya is one of them. So which means and there are 2 Jivit Indriyas. One is the life faculty of mind, other is life faculty of body. So they are all well recognized as mental factors which are present. But since they are universal, their role is not spoken of in the Abhidhamma usually. So when we were trying to study, because we have been studying Ajahn Sumedho and other people, we were trying to reflect as to why they are saying what they are saying. No, because आपको याद होगा अभी भी जब गए थे तो उन्होंने क्लियर किया था regarding the consciousness being present and distinguishing in calling it as the अनिर्दस्सन विज्ञान. दिया था ना अभी जब आपकी जो टॉक थी उस समय भी जो क्वेश्चन हमने पूछा था कि विज्ञान को तो लोग कहते हैं कंडीशन है, आप उसको वो अनकंडीशन किस तरह सेंस में कहते हैं. So what I see is that the sense in which they are talking of it is in this manner. Because life faculty is a universal phenomenon in all living beings, and it is a formless entity. It's not something which is. We also uses that word, na? Formless. बार बार कह रहे थे ना, and in his books you can read that right now. So the presence of life faculty is usually taken as granted, na? Because we are going to talk about living beings. We are not going to talk about dead beings. But it is that which is animating us all the time, and it is also present in deep sleep, isn't it?
Life faculty, when you are saying there are 2 types, life faculty of body and life faculty of mind.
So, body is primary. If life faculty of body is finished, then mind is also finished. But the life faculty of mind may finish, but body may still alive. Is a brain dead जिसको कहा जाता है. So that distinction is available in Abhidhamma itself.
So that mind is not chitta, then it's a
chitta is
life faculty of mind is.
Let me see, because we should not see it as a thing. That is the problem. Na? We tend to see of these things, these as things, because कोई शब्द नहीं है ना हमारे पास. हम समझ रहे हैं कि चित्त भी कोई चीज है और लाइफ फैकल्टी भी कोई चीज है. वो सब चीजें नहीं है. They are all actually experiences. है ना? So when what we talk of chitta is the experience of cognition. कॉग्निशन मतलब सुनना, देखना, स्मेल करना, तो वो कोई चीज नहीं है, वो एक एबिलिटी है, इस तरह से कह सकते हैं, एबिलिटी है। किसकी एबिलिटी है? फंडामेंटली वो जीवित इंद्रिय की एबिलिटी है। बिकॉज वी आर अलाइव, that's why we are conscious. Because we are alive, that's why we are able to see and hear and smell and so on. We may be alive and yet we may not do all of that. That is the portion where Bhavanga operates. We are alive, but we are neither able to hear, nor see, nor smell anything. So what I try to put here is that when the Buddha is mentioning a sixth element as consciousness, you remember there is a, normally we talk of four elements, but there are discourses which Ajahn Sumedho points to. He talks of six elements, four elements of earth, air, fire, water, then space and consciousness. So when you talk of conscious, because the same word is being used, it creates confusion.
Consciousness आता है सर,
है ना?
बहुत कम तो ना,
एक सूत्र में है, एक दो सूत्र
सूत्र.
He talks of six elements. कई बार फोर एलिमेंट्स, कई बार फाइव भी बात होती है.
4 और 5 तो
फाइव की वो कई जगह होता है, कई जगह सिक्स भी है. So which Ajahn Sumedho points out, and I think that when he is talking of consciousness element, he is actually referring to the faculty that we are alive, and that alive means we are conscious. जैसे वो कहते हैं ना एक डिस्कोर्स में कि भाई आर यू आर कॉन्शियस और नॉट? वी आर ऑफ कोर्स कॉन्शियस. नाउ हाउ डू यू नो वी आर कॉन्शियस? यू डोंट नीड टू, आपको मुझे एक्सप्लेन करने की जरूरत नहीं कि मैं कॉन्शियस हूँ. मैं हूँ यार, तुम क्या बताऊंगा तुमको? व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय सेइंग आई डोंट हैव एनी डाउट अबाउट दैट. I may have doubt about whether I am in PL or not, but I am of course conscious. So when these people talk about, Ajahn Sumedho and Eckhart Tolle, we are not only aware of sense objects but also their absence. Now this is the issue which we normally don't reflect upon. They talk about gap between objects, gap between spoken words. Even Ajahn Sumedho mentions it, no?
Yes.
People are sitting, you focus on the gap between people rather than
and he said
space.
Use that as
a
meditation
practice. So focus on the formless. So what is actually happening? When we say that I am not able to see, suppose my eye goes cataract, strong cataract, then I say, इस आँख से तो दिख ही नहीं रहा. Now, how do I know that I am not able to see? Obviously, there is something beyond eye consciousness which is able to tell me that. So, not only are we aware of the sense objects, we can also be aware of the absence of sense objects. Now, that absence of sense objects is not arising of a consciousness of the sense sphere, because that's not arising at all. So it is
so by absence, I could understand that for those moments, the consciousness at those doors doesn't happen.
Yes.
And then you can be aware that...
But still you are aware. That's what I'm
still you are aware.
Still you are aware. So we're trying to distinguish, make that fine distinction. Yeah. That consciousness is not existing at those doors, but still there is some awareness. So that's the distinction made by, for example, by Rodney Smith between mindfulness and awareness. वो शब्दों की एक प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है ना. So then we get into confusion. So I have put down in the next slide this.
Eckhart Tolle, the awareness is what the life faculty.
Yeah, that's what they are. They don't use that word life faculty.
They don't use it, but in our
that's what I understand. Because they are talking of all these Advaita people. They are talking of consciousness as existing. जैसे कि your consciousness तुमको ध्यान करने की क्या जरूरत है? वो कहते रहते हैं ना, आपने देखा होगा, ध्यान करने की क्या जरूरत है? Are you not conscious? Are you not aware? What is your problem? Why do you have to be in a specific posture and to be aware? So what they are pointing out is the natural awareness which we have. अभी हम बैठे हैं तो मैं देख रहा हूँ ना आपको, आप मेरी बात सुन पा रहे हैं ना, उसके लिए कोई जोर तो नहीं लगाना पड़ रहा ना सुनने के लिए.
लेकिन हम ये तो नहीं देखते कि इस बात से नहीं देखते कि वी आर अवेयर और नॉट. हम तो नॉर्मल
वो तो समझने की बात है ना. हम उसको रिफ्लेक्टिव अवेयरनेस बना लें तो देन दैट इटसेल्फ इज एनफ. दैट इटसेल्फ इज एनफ.
Silesh is asking, isn't perception of absence of object is an object?
No, what is the object?
That the perception of absence
There is
of
no
object.
object there. There is no object, and I'm still aware that there is no object. I'm not able to see. मेरी आगे तो ठीक थी, क्या हो गया, अंधा हो गया मैं, दिख ही नहीं रहा है. So there is that awareness that I'm not able to see, which means eye consciousness is not arising. I'm aware eye consciousness is not arising. सुनना बहरा हो जाता है आदमी, बुढ़ापे में तो हो ही जाते हैं, मुझे सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है. I cannot hear you, but there is an awareness that I am not able to hear.
But or is it or does it happen that awareness further triggers the reaction?
No, I'll come to that.
And
this is of course a speculation, so I'm just mentioning. That's why I've written some reflections. We should reflect on it, and then maybe if you find some flaw, then we should think about it. But I've tried to be as much rigorous as possible. No, mindfulness is a conditioned chitta, that we know. We've already studied that, isn't it? We're not always mindful. Under certain conditions we are mindful, under certain conditions we are not mindful. And we can cultivate it. So what can be cultivated cannot be something which is universal, isn't it? So as I've written here, mindfulness is a conditioned chitta. It may or may not be present. This is very well known to all of us. So the question arises, how do you become aware of its absence? What happens when the mind wanders away? This is all within our practice. I'm not making any speculation here.
At the time we are also there, the mind is wandering.
When the mind is wandering, the moment we become aware, we come back to the mindfulness. But during the wandering of the mind, still we are conscious. So there is something which is operating behind mindfulness. So when the mind wanders away, there is manovinyana, mind is doing funny things are happening, which means there is a consciousness operating, but we are not mindful. So there are distinctions between mindfulness and consciousness. So there is a discourse of the Buddha in Samyukta Nikaya, where the one person asks him, what is the recourse, what is the kind of source or recourse of senses? Aankhein dekh rahi hai, what is the locus of them? His mind is the locus. But eventually sense data will be processed in the mind. Then he asks him, what is the locus of mind? Question पूछने वाला पूछता जाता है. He says, locus of the mind is mindfulness, because mindfulness can see what's going on. Then he says, what is the locus of mindfulness? So he says, locus of mindfulness is the unconditioned. Liberation. Then he says, what is the locus of liberation? He says, Nibbana. He says, what is the locus of Nibbana? So you're asking, the question has gone too far. There's nothing like locus of Nibbana. So this sutta Rodney Smith quotes in one of his talks, that when we say refuge of mindfulness is the unconditioned, it actually means that anidarsana vijnana, which he talked with Ajahn Sumedho mentioned, that is the unconditioned part of it, which is in a way giving life to the awareness, which manifests through various objects in forms of different kinds of awareness. So that's why when you say awareness is not personal, it is basically because it is unlimited, it is unconditioned, it is that anidarsana vijnana, which is giving rise to awareness, and everybody can access it. Anybody who is alive can access that awareness, and therefore he has that basic awareness. Even dogs have that awareness, even animals have that awareness, trees have that awareness, but it manifests in different forms. So it's not personal. But mindfulness is personal, because that is what, whether I am mindful or not. I can be mindful sometimes, I am sometimes lost.
So two questions. One is when, because in the...
Let me complete last time, because then it will be complete, then we'll have questions. The last which I have written, I think मैंने थोड़ा change कर दिया, आपको पता नहीं
वो नहीं
है नहीं
last
last
नहीं।
मुझे लग रहा है. What I have written here is Anidassana Vijnana or unmanifest consciousness is the space in which Sati and Vijnana arise. Now this is the way I look at it. It seems now clearly obvious to me. Now there is, you can take it as an analogy with the, for example, space. In this room there is space, isn't it? And the objects are in space. If there is no space, there is no objects. And the extent of extension of space is governed by extension of objects. जैसे कहा जाता है expanding universe है, so space is being created actually as the universe is expanding. That's what physicists tell us.
Space has been created.
There is no other way by which you can recognize objects. And if there is no space, there will be no objects. If there is no silence, there will be no words. Do you get my point, what I am trying to say? The words emanate in silence. Suppose everybody was speaking and there was sound all the time. Would you be able to figure out anything? If somebody is speaking at such a fast pace that there is no space between the words, you will not be able to make out anything. That's why they say, observe the space between the words. Observe space between objects. Jan Suvedha ने कहा था ना, आप तो थी वहाँ पे, मैंने तो यहीं पे, thanks to him I listened again. So, because the objects are separated from each other, we can distinguish between them. If everything had same color, you will not be able to see anything. Isn't it? अगर अभी सारे कमरे का कलर भी हम एक कर दें, आप सबके कपड़े बिल्कुल ऐसे कर दें, आप सबके चेहरे उसी कलर कर दें, you will not be able to recognize anything because there is no way you can distinguish. We distinguish between objects because of different colors.
But the space is important. They should be.
Not just important, it is the basis. Space is the basis of objects, forms. Silence is the basis of words. Because in silence the words emerge. अगर एक ये कागज है जैसे, I mean, it's just reflection, you can think about it. I think somewhere I read that also. एक खाली कागज है, ठीक है ना? इस पे अगर मैं कुछ लिखूंगा तो लिख सकता हूँ. अगर ये पहले ही लिखा हुआ है सब कुछ तो मैं क्या लिखूंगा इस पे? If it is all blue and I have only blue ink, I can't write anything on it because it's all full. So it's only in emptiness that objects emerge. This is the typical statements which we see from there. So the value of this room is in emptiness, not in the objects. If there was no emptiness in the room, you will not have any object. What will you do with the room of that kind? So the point which is being made is that using these as analogies, the point I am making is that Anidassana Vijnana or unmanifest consciousness is like space in which the objects lie. So it is like the space in which the Sati, mindfulness and Vijnana arise. The problem of course is with the analogy is that Vijnana can never be an object because it's always a subject. I can see you, I can hear something, but I can't see the seer. Because the very process of seeing is through the seer, which is the consciousness. So consciousness can never be an object. So therefore there is difficulty which we face in figuring it out what is going on.
That's what
I was pointing out again and again.
That you can't be mindful or
you can't be aware of who is seeing. You can't see the seer. Because the process of seeing is done by the seer, not by you. And there is no one who is seeing. It's actually unmanifest consciousness. So these are some reflections I've put on. These, all of us, let's...
One question which I had was that because we were talking of life faculty and when we're talking about unconditioned. So, is it right to say that the source of life faculty is unconditioned in the background?
Certainly.
That's what
it is the unconditioned which is giving rise to the whole drama which is going on.
And
because conditioned things are emerged from unconditioned. You know?
Right.
Objects emerge in space. Sound emerges in silence. Fragrance emerges in
but
absence
the
of
life
fragrance.
faculty has that characteristic of unconditioned. It's just that it is limited to that particular consciousness of that body. But
So it seems that body. But life faculty being formless is pervading all over, isn't it?
but
When
then
I move from here to here, life faculty follows me. It's not following me, it's actually pervading all over. That's a conjecture, I can't say that.
But there is something in this of being alive which remains
Which remains with me wherever I go,
wherever I go.
in whichever posture I am, isn't it? Isn't it? And it's not only in you, it's only in her also.
Right.
And it's in that plant also, it's in the dog also, it's in that insect also, it's in that mosquito also, isn't it? So either we can say there are 7 billion life faculties and 100 billion faculties of animals, and you can say that way. I can't refute that. There's no way, but it seems highly improbable, isn't it? Because anything which is formless, if it was form, then I should be able to see it. Anything which is finite will become an object somewhere. So it's of course this is only speculation, so I can't say it either way. But to the extent I could reflect on it.
So another question which I had was regarding the self-view. So when we are mindful, when the mindfulness arises, does the self-view then arises with it?
No. If you are really,
because we say
if we say I am mindful, matter ends. Then there is that feeling. That's why Buddha, Satipatthana says, Yavde jnana mattaya sati mattaya. So we practice mindfulness to such an extent that we transcend the mind, I who is being mindful. Abhi to shuru mein to I am being mindful, I am practicing, I am being mindful. The state comes and there is no I who is being mindful, there is general mindfulness is left. Sati mattaya, jnana mattaya. Only knowledge, only mindfulness, only awareness.
So then what we are saying that initially with mindfulness we have this kind of a self-view that I am
being mindful, I have to practice, I have to, when we are cultivating, then there is an I who is cultivating, obviously. So mindfulness becomes a personal thing. So the whole idea, which Rodney Smith puts it, that from mindfulness you move toward awareness.
Right.
He uses that word to distinguish between them, which means move in that direction of impersonalization. He says Buddha's Satipatthana is basically to make us move from mindfulness to awareness, which itself is a quality of unmanifest, anidrasana vijnana, which is Buddha calls it. And he gives the example very vividly, that in one of the suttas, that suppose light is coming from a window, where will it fall? He says it will fall on the object. He says if there is no object, then the person says it will fall on the floor. There is no floor. Where will it fall? It will not fall anywhere. So that is what is the unmanifest consciousness. That is the kind of analogy which is used. Which means it is there, but it has no place to manifest.
No place.
So only when it manifests, it falls on an object, then it becomes Deepak or PL or this or that. So that's the way it seems. So you can think whether it makes sense or not. Because there are slight extrapolations, not much, but slight extrapolations from what is given in Abhidhamma Sangha, based on whatever interaction I've had with Bhikkhu Bodhi and others,
And this is what I think
Ajahn
Sumedho keeps mentioning.
Ajahn Sumedho, Eckhart Tolle, Rodney Smith, they're all people, Ajahn Chah, I read Ajahn Chah, just talks about, and Buddha is also talking. There's a sutta of Buddha's, Pabaskaro evam chitta. The chitta is by itself luminous. it gets defiled by adventitious defilements. वो आती रहती हैं इसलिए वो डिफाइल हो जाता है. Otherwise by itself it is pure and luminous. What does it mean?
It refers to.
What does it mean?
Gives in points in that direction.
Yeah, it points in that direction. But वो because it does not match with the traditional Theravada orthodoxy, तो वो उसको करने ये मुश्किल है, समझ नहीं आ रहा है. That's the kind of everywhere they would write in such things. It's one of the enigmas which has not been understood.
So I think this is possibly the only way by which we can understand Anapa.
This is the way by which we understand what Ajahn Sumedho and other, and we can see then the substantial congruence with Advaita. The only difference which remains is they say I am this. That's what I have been telling right from the beginning.
Yes.
They say I am that. What they are saying, there is that. Yeah, I nahi.
It tries to
no
create that sense of identity,
yeah.
And then you're not able to leave that self up.
Here it is saying there is nothing is there. It's all unmanifest consciousness which is manifesting here through different objects. So it is effectively same thing, but not saying that you are that. So it's not I am that, but there is that and the phenomena is happening. So then you can see this whole phenomena Vanatta much easily.
आप कौन सी चाय लेंगे? ग्रीन टी लेंगे?
So yesterday we in IIT we were discussing it, then it just struck to me how exactly all this process जो अभी हम discuss कर रहे थे regarding life and death is happening. What is it that I am? So जो लामा सूर्यदास की जो statement है ना जो मैंने अपने उसमें भी लिखी हुई email में, I find it perfectly describes the reality that there is ownerless karma which is rolling on. The karma streams are there, which is flowing. And in our ignorance, we strengthen those karma streams and they keep on flowing and flowing and flowing. Whether we do wholesome karma or unwholesome, we are doing karma. Doership is there. Then the stream is becoming stronger and stronger. Let me complete. So, what I am today is manifestation of one particular karma stream. And when I was born, before that karma stream must have manifested in some other form. There must have been some other person who died and whose Chuti Chitta gave rise to Patisandhi Chitta, which was responsible for my birth. So that person is my karmic parent. My mother and father were my biological parents, but there is a karmic parent. This person who died and whose Chuti Chitta gave rise to Patisandhi Chitta and the other so-called arose. And when I die, I will again give rise to some other person. Who am I and what is that person and what is that person? I don't know. It's all going on. What I can do with my abilities is limited. Whatever I have inherited, Kamma Daya to Bhagavan कहते हैं ना, Kamma is your inheritance. I have inherited the Kamma from that person. Whatever he did with the karma stream, whether he messed it up or not, I have inherited it. And what I do with it, to the limited extent that I have the freedom to do something, the choice which I have. Depending on the choice, I can strengthen that karma stream or enfeeble it, make it slower and slower. So then the next person will be born. If I am able to finish this karma stream, exhaust all the fruits of karma in this very life, stream will finish.
So one question I had regarding this karma was that does it become one-to-one relationship? Like when the one stream arrests, there will be just corresponding passed on to only one,
yes,
or it can be multiple.
According to because one chitta will arise with another, then another, then another, then another. So it's a sequence. Within street hai. It's like a street which is built. आप कुछ कह रहे हैं?
जो जैसे चित्त है तो सबसे पहले वो उत्पन्न कैसे
फर्स्ट कॉज की तो भगवान की इसमें कोई प्रश्न नहीं है. तो कहते हैं there is unseeable, unthinkable.
भगवान की जो चित्त के अंदर जो संस्कार होंगे उसके वो बीज
कहाँ से आए, where did it start, where did the ignorance start? So there is that sutta where it says the beginning of this world is not seen. Just stop that question. There's no possible to see. He talks of there, for example, I saw hundreds and thousands of eons and I could not see the beginning of it. So he says when he saw his own birth and death and birth, previous lives and lives, infinite lives, and then other people infinite lives, ranging to eons. He said it doesn't seem to begin. There's no beginning. So he says I could not see the beginning. That's it. Now, if he can't see it, he can definitely not see it.
The Shailesh has a question that if karmic flow happens, why interfere with positive or negative actions? Doing nothing is what is needed.
Yeah, but if we can do nothing, that is wonderful. We can't. Because there is suffering and we react to it because we have that inclinations. Doing nothing in the sense of not reacting. Doing nothing is not in the sense of being passive and tolerating and suffering. That's why doership is the cause of karma. So anything done with the doership will give rise to karma. It may be wholesome or unwholesome. So suffering is the mechanism nature has created for us to reflect. Suffering is nature's mechanism created for us to reflect what to do because we don't like it. That is the nature's mechanism.
So doing nothing in sense of not reacting is okay.
Yes, not only that. Doing nothing in the sense of being free from doership concept. Doing nothing तो मतलब passively हो गया ना. एक तो ये भी हो सकता है ना. Doing nothing का मतलब है
but if we are reacting,
passive है, कुछ नहीं करता. ऐसा बकवास है ये. सारा संसार कुछ नहीं करना बैठा.
If we are reacting is like
then we are doing nothing out of aversion.
Right. But what I want was not reacting in sense of not creating the self.
Yeah, that's right. If we are able to perceive the whole world in that sammaditthi, right view, then obviously we are not doing anything. Arhat is supposed not to do anything. But doesn't mean he doesn't do anything. But that was probably much more active than all of us put together. So, but effectively he was doing, जैसे वो अजान सुमेरो के बारे में जब मैंने उसको बताया था that I was really blank out. He is always abiding in emptiness. He speaks and talks and does everything, but nothing enters in. अजान सुमेरो के बारे में उसने बताया. मैंने बताया था ना आपको. अजान अशोक ने बताया था. जब मैं पहली बार मिलने गया था उनसे, when I came out of his kuti, my mind was absolutely blank. I forgot 20 minutes. शुरू में तो पता नहीं चला क्या हो गया. Then I realized कि उनसे बात आया हूँ. मैं तो आराम से बात कर रहा था, but I think his impact is produced. So then I sat down on the bench. वहाँ पे जो थे कोने में bench थे ना, उसमें जहाँ चाय वगैरह थी, वहीं बैठ गया मैं. बैठ के just mildly, kindly, silently, I was observing what's going on. How long in the mind we refuse to think. I just looked at it. Then Ajahn Ashoko came after about 20 minutes, and then 15-20 minutes, I told him this. And he said, yeah, this happens to some people, when they come in touch with him for the first time and sit with him, because he's always abiding in emptiness. So it infects you. If you are ready, it will infect you. When you may think that he's talking, discussing this, that, but it doesn't enter into his consciousness at all. Just doing functionally things, which means he should be arant according to that statement. I didn't ask him that, but this is what is meant by non-doing.
He mentioned me also that the presence of Ajahn Sumito is very strong, and also he mentioned that in the sala where they kept the relics of Buddha, there are strong vibrations. These two things Ajahn Ashok mentioned to me as well.
So he is doing nothing. That is what is meant by doing nothing.
Yes.
Whatever comes in front, वो देखते जो उनको आता है वो बोल देते. Whatever he remembers of his past experience, which he feels will be helpful to you, you ask him something, he answers. That's it.
In his talks, he is very lively.
Yeah. He is effectively only sharing his experience.
Yes.
It doesn't give a discourse in that
Yeah.
sense.
It doesn't mention that you should.
You should do this or you don't do it. It is offered for the reflection.
Yes. Okay. Any more questions before we close this day? Close for the day. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll meet next time. Bye.